Chapter 561. Deciphering the Code. This was a very obvious problem, but normal people would easily overlook it. Why did this mysterious Gu immortal go through such great trouble, brave enormous risk, tamper with and use giant sun immortal venerables arrangement to set up their inheritance? Thinking from their perspective, if I was this Gu immortal, why would I insist on digging out 88 true young buildings loophole to set up my inheritance? I could set up one by myself perfectly by just spending a little effort. 88 True Young Building is a rank 8 immortal Gu house and was personally arranged by Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. There was truly an enormous risk in using its loophole. If I wanted to wholeheartedly leave behind an inheritance, there would be absolutely no need to go so far and intentionally take risks. Unless, Fang Yuan's eyelids drooped as a cold light flashed quickly past his dark pupils. Unless, the inheritance required such an arrangement. The moment he thought of this, the fog in Fang Yuan's mind seemed to be pushed aside by two large hands. Humans always have objectives in doing things. Only an enormous objective could make a Gu immortal take such huge risks. Maybe this Gu immortal did not like Giant Sun Immortal Venerable or had hatred against him. But Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had already passed away for countless years, so this possibility was close to zero. Removing the factor of emotions, then there was only the factor of benefits. For this benefit, the mysterious Gu immortal was willing to brave the fatal danger of messing with Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's arrangement. What in the world did they intend to use 88 True Young Building for? Fang Yuan involuntarily thought of the information Lang Yalan's spirit gave him. He had already studied this information hundreds and thousands of times. Even on the day before the large battle of the Imperial Court contest, he had been studying nonstop. Even after reading so many times, every time he read it again or recalled it, he could not help having a feeling of admiration. 88 True Young Building was indeed of exquisite workmanship. Its design was spectacular. This was a fantasy turned into reality. It was a miracle. 88 True Young Building was essentially an immortal Gu house. Back then, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable made plans for his descendants and took the initiative to find long-hair ancestor, requesting him to refine an everlasting inheritance treasure. Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's demand was too great. And as such, long-hair ancestor had to rack his brains and think painstakingly for 100 or so days to meet the standard point. One day, he suddenly had an inspiration and took an alternate way, coming up with a unique method. The immortal Gu house was truly overly enormous. Long-hair ancestor could only settle for the second best option and divided into countless sub-bodies, which were the small towers. The quantity of these small towers reached untold numbers and attracted wild Gu worms for 10 years. As the 10-year period neared its end, they would sink one after another, sacrificing the wild Gu inside and simultaneously resonate with the blizzard outside to form a heavenly power. The heavenly power condensed bit by bit to generate a qualitative change, condensing into a floor of 88 True Young Building. As layers and layers formed, they would finally become the complete 88 True Young Building. From a different perspective, every time 88 True Young Building formed, it was the process of a new refinement. Long-hair ancestor was indeed worthy of being known as the #1 refinement path immortal of all times. His Gu refinement attainment had already crossed the realm of mortal into a realm of divinity. It was already not easy for ordinary Gu masters to refine a Gu successfully. It was the same for Gu immortals as well when they refine immortal Gu. But long-hair ancestor had already surpassed the limits of the normal Gu refinement to a level of perfection. So did 88 True Young Building's refinement succeed? In truth, the refinement was not a complete success. If a general standard was applied, the truly complete 88 True Young Building would be a tower that would exist for eternity in the blessed land, towering over the sacred palace. However, this standard was too difficult to fulfill. Back when Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had mentioned it, long-hair ancestor's brows had furrowed deeply and had immediately said, if the refinement truly succeeds, then this immortal Gu house would be at rank 9 realm. What was the meaning of a rank 9 immortal Gu? The Gu in legends like Strength Gu, Wisdom Gu, Fate Gu, and so on were all rank 9 immortal Gu. These immortal Gu were priceless even among the priceless and had already vanished, their radiance only being revered in. Just like rank 9 Gu immortals who were given the title of Venerable throughout the boundless history, only 10 of them appeared. There had never been a rank 9 realm immortal Gu house, but Giant Sun Immortal Venerable did not give up on his request. Long-hair ancestor could only agree to the request, fearing the might of an immortal venerable. Finally, he thought of a solution that was not a solution. to create a rank 9 immortal goo house that could only exist for a short period of time. Thus, 88 True Young building ended up being at rank 8 realm. Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had not been pleased with it, but his attitude changed after inspecting it, and was full of praise as he said, 88 True Young building itself holds the secret of a mortal becoming a goo immortal. Why did he say that? The reason was that a mortal had to cross over the hurdle of the 3 elements to become a goo immortal. Element of heaven. Heaven above, with immeasurable might, mysterious and mighty. Element of earth. Earth below, virtuous, stable and profound. Element of man. Man in the center, the spirit of all beings, exerting oneself to soar above. Mortal were like tiny insects, and only by connecting with heaven and earth could they be free of their mortal state and make themselves go through a fundamental evolution. And 88 True Young buildings formation made use of these 3 elements. The Imperial Court contest was to spread the element of man. The 10-year blizzard was a cruel and vicious element of heaven. The small towers sinking into the ground were borrowing the blessed land's element of earth. The 3 elements combine into one, and a mortal becomes an immortal. The 3 elements combined to form 88 True Young building that plundered Northern Plains resources to give rise to Huang Jin family super tribes and allowed Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's influence to be inextinguishable for countless years. Wait a moment. Don't tell me? Fang Yuan's body shook slightly as a bright light blossomed in his eyes. The small towers are a part of 88 True Young building. The mysterious goo immortal who set up Dicho inheritance broke this small tower and created a hole. When the hole formed, according to the principle of the refinement of 88 True Young building, there should be a backflow of heavenly power to condense into a new small tower. 88 True Young building was a rank 8 immortal goo house and was very difficult to destroy. But the small towers could be easily destroyed. This was like the difference between a goo immortal and mortals. Thus, when Giant Sun Immortal Venerable arranged these small towers in the Blessed Land, he used the strength of Imperial Court Blessed Land to protect them tightly and isolate them from most sources of damage. Long-Hair Ancestor was the #1 immortal in refinement path, so he naturally had considered the situation of the small towers being destroyed. Thus, every 10 years, during the time of the formation of 88 True Young building's main body, the condensed heavenly power would first flow back to repair the gaps in the small towers before condensing into the main body. However, Dicho inheritance had already been set up for many years, but the small tower over it has still not been repaired. Moreover, this mysterious goo immortal used some method to seal up this gap and deceive 88 True Young building. I understand now. The reason they did this should be none other than to make use of the heavenly power that condenses into 88 True Young building. Light in the soil, shine up to 100,000 feet high, swimming in the sky for 100 li, praising plum fragrant snow. It seems this secret phrase is the method of goo refinement. In fact, Fang Yuan had guessed this before. However, he did not have conclusive evidence back then. Now, although it was still a guess, but after testing and probing it, Fang Yuan was much more confident. Time always seemed to move faster when one was pondering deeply. He Lu Lan and his group were defeated by the Golden White Tiger Phantom and were sent out of the tower. To not attract any suspicion, Fang Yuan could only use the glass owner token to get out of the tower. A group of people suddenly appeared at the entrance of the first floor of the tower. They have appeared. The lords have returned. Subordinate greets Lord Tribe Leader and all the lords. The guards sitting there, who were of He Tribe's direct line of descent, immediately came forward to greet. He Lu Lan and the group all looked battered and exhausted or were covered in blood. Although they had failed, they had made much progress and gains as they were even able to push forward for over 10 rounds. However, the situation this time was special. He Lu Lan and others' gazes landed on Fang Yuan, revealing the intent of probing, curiosity, doubts and investigating. Ha ha ha. Everyone worked hard and contributed highly for this expedition, especially Wolf King, who can be said to be the #1 in contribution this time. After returning, organize a banquet immediately. We will celebrate for 3 days. He Lu Lan laughed loudly and lightly patted Fang Yuan's shoulder, showing off their close relationship. High-grade evaluation made Fang Yuan's worth rise by another level in his heart. I gained some insight from this trip. I need to undergo closed cultivation to consolidate them. I hope Lord He Lu Lan would not blame me. Fang Yuan lightly smiled and directly turned down He Lu Lan. He Lu Lan's smile froze before immediately recovering the next moment and said it was not a problem, showing the disposition of a magnanimous leader. As for how furious he was inwardly, or how much the others were envious, Fang Yuan did not care. He wanted to return now to study the secrets of Dichio inheritance meticulously. 6 days later, Fang Yuan pushed open the window and looked down at the sacred palace. His eyes flashing with a light of joy. He had fully solved the secret of Dichio inheritance. 1 only required a correct direction for such riddles, and it would only be a matter of time. Just as Fang Yuan guessed before, the cipher was a recipe for refining immortal goo. The mysterious goo immortal who arranged the inheritance used the loophole of the 88 True Young building, borrowing the power which would condense into 88 True Young building to refine an immortal GU. As long as one followed the words of the secret phrase and refined the goo step by step, even a mortal goo master could refine it successfully. It was because the immortal goo refinement was not relying on the mortal goo master's power, but was borrowing from the strength of 88 True Young building. But as for what this immortal goo was, Fang Yuan did not know, and could only make conjectures from the secret phrase. This goo immortal should very likely be from Central Continent. The goo refinement method is filled with Central Continent style. And adding on my previous life's video, this inheritance should be in the form of a chain, and what I obtained was likely only a part of it. Fang Yuan estimated in his heart. In Fang Yuan's past life, Central Continent goo immortals planned to use this loophole to breach 88 True Young building. They should have discovered some preceding clue to this inheritance. This was not strange. Many goo masters, when setting inheritances, would arrange them step by step and leave behind clues after clues. If the fated ones had enough ability, they could inherit the whole inheritance. If their ability was not up to par, they could only receive a part of the benefits. Central Continent goo immortals should have obtained the preceding clues to this inheritance and should not have known the latter part of the secret phrase. Otherwise, they definitely would not waste the chance of obtaining an immortal goo. And what Fang Yuan accidentally obtained was only the latter part. Without the preceding clues, it became extremely incomprehensible. If not for Fang Yuan having the intel of 88 True Young building and his previous life's memories, he would not have been able to comprehend it even if he was given ample time. Chibi General, it still sounds like gibberish to me. Chapter 562. Reason for being cowardly and afraid of death? Speaking of it, this Central Continent goo immortal is truly amazing, seeing through 88 True Young building's hole and also using such an idea. Clearly, they were also a refinement path master. No, to reach this step, they have to be at least a grandmaster in refinement path. They actually left behind an immortal goo as an inheritance. This is truly an immortal treasure. They put the clue in fake gray-white stone slabs. Such creativity and innovation was really amazing. I wonder what kind of successor they want to choose. The most crucial problem of the secret phrase was resolved, but even more questions popped out. Fang Yuan shook his head and cleared up his disorganized thoughts. No matter what, this inheritance is related to an immortal goo. I need to give it a try with all my effort. Now, it should take over half a month at least to prepare the relevant goo worms, light in the soil, shine up to 100,000 feet high, swimming in the sky for 100 li, praising plum fragrant snow. These 4 phrases might be simple, but Fang Yuan would not have been able to decipher them without his refinement path master attainment. Based on Fang Yuan's current comprehension, he needed over 200 goo worms to borrow the force of 88 True Young building and refine the mysterious immortal goo. Among them were 28 rank 4 and rank 5 goo worms, and this number was only enough for one use. Fang Yuan, in preparing the goo refinement, would have to make at least 3 times the preparatory materials to prevent any errors during the goo refinement process which could lead to failure. And in case he failed, he would require spare goo worms. 16 days later. In the hall, He Lu Lan showed the demeanor of the Black Tyrant to the fullest, shouting fiercely and wantonly venting out the anger in his heart. The elders who were scolded and even beaten by He Lu Lan could not raise their heads and were quiet out of fear. Ever since He Lu Lan entered Imperial Court Blessed Land, his temper had been getting increasingly violent. After 88 True Young building opened, this change intensified and his temper became like a barrel of gunpowder, berating and beating his subordinates at the slightest pretext. As of today, there were already 3 He tribe elders who were heavily beaten by him and were still bedridden. Lord Tribe Leader, it is not a slacking in our duty, but this 78th round is truly too difficult. The Golden White Tiger Phantom Guardian is too strong and has 30% of the Desolate Beast's powers. With our mortal bodies, no matter how much we try, we can only harass it and have no way to harm it heavily. Moreover, if the Golden White Tiger goes on the offense, our goo masters would not be able to resist it. He Pei, the head of the elders, waited for He Lulan to finish venting his anger, before cautiously speaking. He Lulan glanced at him and cursed. Your words are bullshit. Golden White Tiger Phantom might have strong attacking prowess, but as long as we all unite and disregard the sacrifices, we can definitely defeat it before the time limit. You guys are all afraid of difficulties, tarnishing my He tribe's reputation of bravery. The elders shrunk their heads after being scolded, not daring to say anything. He Lulan's words were actually not without reason. It was already not the first time in dealing with the Golden White Tiger Phantom. If they truly disregarded sacrifices, and people were willing to be cannon fodder and fought to give others an opportunity, even at the cost of their own lives under the claws of the Golden White Tiger Phantom, then He tribe's offense, although powerless, would accumulate with time, and could be like groups of ants biting an elephant, eventually defeating the Golden White Tiger Phantom. But the truth of the matter was when the Golden White Tiger Phantom attacked, everyone feared for their life and was afraid of going forward, causing He Lulan's advancement in 88 True Young building to stop at this round. Unable to progress any further, He Lulan's shouts kept on resounding in the hall. Right now, no one dared to antagonize this furious black tyrant who did not spare even his tribesmen. After He Lulan vented his anger once more, he sat down on the main seat with a gloomy expression. His heart was filled with pent-up fury, especially when he looked at these silent elders. He felt sick to his stomach. Besides anger, he felt helplessness. During the Imperial Court contest, these He tribe elders had fought bravely and had no fear. But in this place, they were worried for their safety. Where did their courage go? Actually, He Lulan understood. During the Imperial Court contest, rewards and punishments were openly issued. People fought to be the first, competing for fame and fortune, to be stronger and to survive. However, in 88 True Young building, the rewards for passing the stages would go to the tribe leader, which caused everyone to have very little incentive to charge through the rounds. The most important reason was that they had already won the Imperial Court contest, and there were no more threats to their survival, and there were also many inheritances outside the sacred palace. As long as they survived this period of time, they were bound to have an even more radiant future when they exited Imperial Court blessed land. Only fools would do things like abandoning their lives and acting as cannon fodder to help someone else. He tribe's elders were all extremely crafty. Preserving their lives was most important, and besides that, so what if they were scolded and beaten by He Lulan? Even if He Lulan heavily injured them, and they had to lie on the bed, it was nothing compared to dying. He Lulan was aware of the elders' thoughts. Even if I am a rank 5 expert, I cannot control their will. Once there is no unity, it will not be easy to lead even if the tribe is stronger. Never mind. He Lulan sighed inwardly and spoke. Since it is so, then I can only open up 88 True Young building and gather everyone's strength to charge through the rounds. Requesting outside help required guest tokens, but right now, besides He tribe, there were also other Huang Jin tribes like Yi Lui tribe, Ma tribe, and so on in Imperial Court blessed land. One could imagine that once He Lulan opens up 88 True Young building to them, these people would definitely charge forward madly. With this, they could be the cannon fodder. After hearing He Lulan's words, the elders exchanged veiled communication with each other through their gazes. This method allowed them to stay away from the vanguard position, but they were somewhat unwilling. The first elder He Pei stepped forward. Lord Tribe Leader, this is a clever method, but we need to keep up our guard. These people might have the old ancestors' bloodline running through them, but they are not of our He tribe. When they pass the rounds and get the benefits, I am afraid they won't hand over anything. That's right, Lord. Elder He Qixing also added, our He tribe racked our brains and suffered great difficulties before we were able to emerge as the winner in this time's Imperial Court contest. This 88 True Young building is ours. Why should we share it with outsiders? There are precedents of such actions, but when looking at history, those were all weak tribes who won by fluke and did not have the ability to get through the stages, so they had no choice but to mobilize other Huang Jin tribes. Our He tribe is strong and has many competent experts. How can we seek others' help? Humph. He Lulan raised his brows. Since our troops are strong, why are we not able to challenge even one Golden White Tiger Phantom? You group of dogs at trash, only cherishing your lives dearly. But when I want to bring in outsiders to stake their lives for us, you are afraid of them taking the benefits? Do you think there is such a good thing in this world? Different from these elders, He Lulan was already feeling very anxious. He was the possessor of great strength, true martial physique, and must obtain a strength path immortal Gu to advance to Gu immortal, only by becoming an immortal. Could he alleviate this threat to his life? However, whether 88 True Young building had any strength path immortal goo or which floor the strength path immortal goo was on, both were unknown. As such, he wholeheartedly wanted to break the conventions and bring in the situation where the Huang Jin tribes cooperate to get through the rounds. Each round he passed would allow the owner token with him to advance and make it more convenient to proceed onwards. Although they were defeated repeatedly at this round, He Lulan thought of it as a good opportunity. He took the chance to create difficulty and shouted once again. His furious shouts resounded in the hall, causing everyone's ears to hear buzzing. Due to He Lulan's might and terrifying reputation, the elders could only choose to compromise. The first elder He Pei said with worry. Opening 88 True Young building to others is like letting in a torrent. Once its momentum increases, it will definitely cause disastrous losses. I suggest we place some limits. Wolf King Chang Shanin was a lesson that is right before us. These words immediately caused an intense commotion among the elders. Someone said with a bitter tone, "Right, Wolf King is really a hoodlum. He is hogging the benefits all to himself. Right now, he is in closed-door cultivation, maybe inwardly laughing to himself." Someone scoffed with disdain. 88 True Young building belongs to He tribe. We let him participate to tackle the round because we thought highly of him. But he repays us like this. Humph. What dogs at Northern Plains hero? He is just an ungrateful thief. Someone said with a cold and gloomy gaze. In my opinion, when we open up 88 True Young building this time, we should not bring Chang Shanin in. This will teach him a lesson. He Lulan coldly snorted. He was naturally greatly dissatisfied with Fang Yuan's behavior. If it was someone else, he would have already taken action. But Chang Shanin was not a measly character. His bearing in the decisive battle of the Imperial Court contest was still deeply engraved in He Lulan's mind. If he said he was not afraid, he would be lying. However, openly excluding Chang Shanin was not appropriate as well. Not only would that be a display of narrow-mindedness, in case Wolf King was offended, even if Chang Shanin did not make a move, he still had the Azure Wolf group. First Elder He Pei, since you mentioned this, then let's hear it. He Lulan spoke. He Pei slightly smiled and said with confidence, "There is no problem in opening 88 True Young building to the outside from tomorrow. But before entering the building, no matter who it is, they would need to pay a fee. There will only be a quota of 800 entrants every day, and the fee for entrance will increase according to the order of the entrance. At the same time, they must use poison Valgu and agree to give 50% of all their gains to He tribe." He paused before continuing. "As for outsiders that want to enter the tower, they need to pay a high price to purchase our guest tokens." Every elder present at the scene immediately had bright gazes as they praised this suggestion. He Lulan swept over the scene once before leaning back on his chair, slowly closing his eyes. "All right, this matter shall be done as He Pei says." He Pei was exulted. "Lord Tribe Leader is wise and powerful. Thank you, Lord Tribe Leader, for your appreciation." The news of 88 True Young building opening to the outside spread and immediately caused a huge sensation in the sacred palace. Countless people rushed to the place of registration. One side cursed He tribesmen for their ruthlessness in asking such a greatly high fee, while another side paid generously and even fought others for a quota to enter. Fang Yuan observed indifferently, but he was inwardly happy. Right now, inheriting Di Chiu inheritance was of the utmost priority to him. Even if He Lulan took the initiative to invite him, he would not have been very willing. While the others had their attentions on 88 True Young building now, it was the perfect time for him to make his move on the inheritance. Chapter 563. Nature of the Three Inheritances. The night sky of Imperial Court blessed land was covered in silvery light. Like silk or fog, it shone down on the land like a vast veil. A group of azure wolves were running freely in the sky, chasing birds in the air or hunting animals on the ground. They were not hunting for food, it was merely leisure. Fang Yuan stood above Di Chiu, slowly opening his eyes. These days, not only did he prepare for the Gu refinement, he even expanded his wolf groups, not just the Azure Wolf group. The land-based ordinary wolves, including Turtleback Wolf, Water Wolf, Night Wolf, etc., had reached 200,000 in numbers. The wolf group has previously been spread around a radius of 100 li. It can be a good method of deterrence. Moreover, the Azure Wolf group in the sky has already become the symbol of Wolf King. Most Gu masters would understand that Chang Shanin is hunting here when they see the wolves, thus they will choose to take a detour. If they did not detour, it meant that they had ill intentions. Once these Gu masters were discovered by the wolves, they would be attacked by them. Of course, there were innocent people who entered by accident, but Fang Yuan could not care less about them. It is their bad luck if they get killed by wolves. Fang Yuan turned his gaze towards the sacred palace. Although he was far away, he could see the dazzling aurora in the sky. The sacred palace was shining in bright light once again. It was a beautiful sight, and also the sign that 88 True Young building was going to materialize the second floor. This had another meaning in Fang Yuan's case. The towers sink and countless wild gu are sacrificed in order to become the mystical power that forms the immortal gu house. This aurora was the accumulation of such power, and it had already reached the point of reaching a qualitative change. In order to open Dichio inheritance, Fang Yuan needed to borrow the strength of this mystical power and cause it to flow backwards. In order to get through the stages, He Lulan intentionally opened the 88 True Young building to the public, causing everyone to get excited and all gu masters to feel moved. Once the news spread, all the gu masters outside the sacred palace came and gathered here. Everyone's attention is on the 88 True Young building now. This is the perfect time for me to open the inheritance. Fang Yuan's gaze shone as he smiled. Without hesitation, he struck. Go. He patted his belly, and 36 gu worms flew out of his aperture. These gu were of peculiar shapes. Their bodies were tiny and were half the size of a fingernail. They were like 5-pointed stars, giving off a milky white light. These were rank 1 little light gu, a very famous light path assistance type GU. As Fang Yuan willed. These little light gu flew into Dichio's cave. At once, the darkness in the cave was lifted. Fang Yuan summoned another 13 light fences gu. This gu is rank 3, also from the light path. Once activated, they can turn into fences and restrain the target. The light fences gu flew into the cave and mixed with the little light gu, but there were no changes. Fang Yuan smiled lightly. He waved his hand and 3 rank 5 light path gu came out. These 3 gu were lightning flash gu that increased speed, unlimited spring light gu that healed, as well as the attack type heaven blazing spark gu. Lightning flash gu gave off a blue light. It shone like lightning as it flew into the cave. The motionless Dichio finally had some changes. As if a mechanism was unlocked, the ground and soil around Dichio started to expand and connect. The blue lightning destroyed the little light gu from before and became a light blue glow, having an extremely powerful aura. But at the same time, the light fences gu connected with each other and formed light fences that kept the blue lightning in. The blue light was about to break out, but at this time unlimited spring light flew in and gave off an unlimited jade green aurora. It was gentle as water, suppressing the blue light and forming a stalemate. Eventually, the blazing heaven spark gu flew in and turned into a bright red light. It pierced the green aura and the blue light, going deeper into the cave. With some loud sounds, the cave entrance slowly closed. In the deep parts of the land, 3 lights were mixing together, engaging in a mysterious transformation that Fang Yuan could not describe. Fang Yuan saw this and his heart settled. He knew that he was right. This was the light in the soil part of the quote. Although he was 80% sure, he was worried about mistakes. After all, he only had the latter half of the inheritance's clue. The first half was held in the hands of Central Continent gu Immortal's hands, but this latter half described the method to open this inheritance. Fang Yuan used his foundation as a refinement master, and together with 88 True Young buildings information, he forcefully interpreted this code and gained the chance to snatch the inheritance midway. About an hour later, the sounds from under the ground became softer, but the ground became hotter. Even though Fang Yuan was wearing Northern Plains deer leather shoes, it could not isolate this heat. The hole in the ground slowly opened as the light was gone, leaving pure darkness inside. Fang Yuan saw this and he became elated. After light in the soil, it was shine up to 100,000 feet high. If interpreted literally, it would be a huge mistake. This quote was a test to test the refinement ability of the gu master. The quote was regarding refinement path. Shine up to 100,000 feet high was not just a description of the scenery. It also described the steps for the refinement process. Fang Yuan was not flustered or worried. He threw 2 defensive rank 5 shine back spike gu, 3 investigative type high observation gu, 1 attack type 10,000 heart-piercing arrow gu, and 9 assistance type 9 feet flame gu, only to see that inside the cave, gray-yellow smoke was rumbling but did not ooze out. The sounds of chirping birds or flying arrows, shrieking sounds that pierced the air came from within the smoke. This scene lasted for 7 minutes, until darkness returned again. The ground closed again, as the cave vanished. This time, Dichio no longer gave off heat, but instead cold air was seeping, causing Fang Yuan's legs to turn stiff from the cold. Fang Yuan breathed out a sigh, turning his gaze towards the sacred palace. If my guess is correct, the sacred palace is going to become chaotic. Now, at this moment, in the sacred palace.ata side hall, the secret door concealed by trees opened. An elderly man with snow-white hair walked out with a middle-aged Gu master. Old sir, please take care. First Elder He Pei brought Tai Bai Yunxing out from the secret door and patted his chest. Don't worry, with me here, you are sure to have a guest token. Tai Bai Yunxing laughed. Since Elder He Pei is making a promise, I am sure it will succeed. Of course I am assured. You do not have to send me off. Goodbye. Goodbye. First Elder He Pei placed his fist by his chest as he bowed, seeing Tai Bai Yunxing turn around the corner and vanishing from his vision under the concealment of the trees. The allure of an immortal venerable inheritance is really huge. To think that even Tai Bai Yunxing came to bribe me. He Pei sighed. Ever since He Lu Lan opened up the 88 True Young building, Elder He Pei, who was in charge of this matter, became extremely popular. Every day, all sorts of people came to visit him in secret. Some used their relationships while others talked about and tried to obtain friendship. There were people who bribed him and people who tried to attract him sexually. But Tai Bai Yunxing's visit was a shock to He Pei. Tai Bai Yunxing had a huge reputation. He was the #1 healer in Northern Plains. He saved countless people and was an extremely righteous man with great character. His influence was great. He Pei had not expected Tai Bai Yunxing to bribe him of all people. In the end, old Sir Tai Bai is still immortal. There are only so many guest tokens. If it was me, I would not be able to resist it either. He Pei laughed, raising his head subconsciously towards the top of the sacred palace. There, an aurora of dazzling lights had condensed into a thick fog. Within the thick fog, the second layer of the 88 True Young building was already visible. In no time, the second layer will materialize. Not far away, Tai Bai Yunxing raised his head and looked. The colorful aurora shone on his white hair and his wrinkled face. Tai Bai Yunxing was in a daze. An event deep within his memories resurfaced. That day, the sunset was bright like a fire, burning in the sky. This was the 14-year-old Tai Bai Yunxing, who had just met the old beggar who changed his life forever. Young lad, you gave me a bowl of water. You saved this old beggar's life. What do you want? Say it. I will try my best to fulfill your wishes. The old beggar had messy purple-red hair. He was slightly insane at times, while unconscious sometimes. But when he was awake, his gaze was deep as the ocean. He gave off a disposition that could be etched into a person's memories. I want to be a Gu master. The young Tai Bai Yunxing said. What kind of Gu master do you want to be? I have 3 complete inheritances. The first can allow you to bathe in flames and step on fire, surpassing mortals. The second can allow you to control wind and the air, roaming the world freely. The third can surpass life and death, allowing you to help the people in the world. The old beggar laughed and his rotten yellow teeth were exposed. The young Tai Bai Yunxing frowned and thought about it, before choosing the third inheritance. As he snapped out of his daze, returning from the trip to his memory lane, Tai Bai Yunxing laughed bitterly, muttering, in the end, I am a person that is afraid of dying. When he was young, he did not have such feelings. In fact, he became indifferent after witnessing many situations of death. When Tai Bai Yunxing got old, his healthy body slowly became weak and feeble. He started reminiscing about the times in his youth. Often, people's thoughts changed with their circumstances. On Earth, one could not surpass the limits of life and death. They had no choice but to accept it. But here, as long as there was a trace of hope, they would struggle and fight. Only when he was faced with such a situation, when Tai Bai Yunxing became closer and closer to death, did he become aware of this great terror. Because of this, he secretly observed and waited for several rounds, before clearly understanding the situation, deciding to participate in this Imperial Court contest and enter Imperial Court Blessed Land. If I can obtain lifespan Gu from 88 True Young building, I would be able to increase my lifespan. Although lifespan Gu is hard to find, and even harder to buy or sell, I'm sure there are some inside 88 True Young building. If in the end, I cannot obtain a lifespan Gu, I can only attempt to ascend to Gu Immortal Realm. Tai Bai Yunxing evaluated in his heart. The inheritance the old beggar gave him was outstanding. It was an entire inheritance that allowed one to cultivate all the way to rank 6 Gu Immortal Realm. The inheritance stated very clearly the method for a mortal to ascend to Gu Immortal Realm. Thus, Tai Bai Yunxing was very clear of the risks he had to take to reach Gu Immortal Realm. To advance to Gu Immortal Realm, one needed to gather and fuse the elements of heaven, earth, and man. If either of the 3 aspects were insufficient, They would die, and their soul would dissipate. If he was not desperate, Tai Bai Yunxing did not want to ascend to Gu Immortal Realm. That was because even if he ascended to Gu Immortal Realm, it could not raise his lifespan. But in Tai Bai Yunxing's inheritance, there was hope left for him. But this hope was very difficult to obtain. He needed to succeed in advancing to Gu Immortal Realm for there to be a possibility. These years, Tai Bai Yunxing had been searching for lifespan Gu, but lifespan Gu were created from heaven and earth that could not be located easily and were hard to catch. Tai Bai Yunxing made no progress. There should be lifespan Gu inside 88 True Young building. I can definitely find lifespan Gu there. Tai Bai Yunxing looked at 88 True Young building's figure as he cheered for himself secretly. But the next moment, his pupils expanded as he saw an unbelievable scene. Chapter 564. Heavenly Power Backflow Shocks the Sacred Palace. The whole sacred palace fell into shock and fear. After a while, a large commotion suddenly rose up. What the hell is going on? What happened? Why is the aurora shrinking? A scene that had never occurred before was happening in everyone's sights. The second floor that had been gradually condensing into form was slowly becoming fainter. Great amounts of the thick aurora were reducing and becoming lighter at a visible speed. What happened? He Lulan's brows furrowed into a knot as he grabbed Elder He Pei's collar with his thick arm and pulled towards him. His expression was twisted, and his eyes opened with fury as he shouted, "Investigate it. I must know what the hell happened." He Lulan possessed one of the 10 extreme physiques, great strength, true martial physique. Only by becoming an immortal could he avoid the pressure of death. However, for 10 extreme physiques to become immortal, they required the help of relevant immortal Gu. He Lulan placed his hopes on 88 True Yang building to find the key to become immortal, a strength path immortal Gu. So how could he let an accident happen to 88 True Yang building? Elder He Pei's body shivered in fright. He Lulan asked him to investigate the details, but he was only a mortal. How could he investigate it? What could he investigate? In a sobbing tone, he answered, This subordinate does not know. There were no instances of this happening in historical records. It is getting lighter. It is becoming even more light. Someone shouted while pointing at 88 True Yang building. The aurora became smaller, and the thick light dimmer. Many Gu masters looked up in a daze, panic quickly spreading everywhere. Is 88 True Yang building damaged? This is something our immortal, venerable old ancestor personally arranged. Could it be that 88 True Yang building also cannot compete against the flow of the river of time? Some had pale expressions while even more covered their heads, their gaze filled with fear. They are in chaos. From far away, Fang Yuan looked with an eerie gaze and a cold smile on his face. Even if he was far away, the panicked shouts in the sacred palace still reached his ears. The culprit behind this terror glanced at the sacred palace before looking down at Di Chio Cave below. His gaze shone with a strange light as he praised. Amazing, truly amazing. Fang Yuan had originally estimated that only 10% at most would be absorbed, but he had never thought when he activated the mechanism, the backflow of the heavenly power would surpass his estimation. Based on just this, Fang Yuan could tell this Gu immortal's understanding of 88 True Yang building was absolutely not beneath his. Who is this mysterious Gu immortal? What identity do they have? I had a fortuitous encounter, the advantage of rebirth, and also the first-hand information from Lang Yalan spirit. But how was he or she able to have such a deep understanding of 88 True Yang building? Right now, the cave was filled to the brim with light, almost to the point of overflowing, but it was firmly restrained by the layer of black light at the entrance. The aurora surged freely. The intense light that was brewing inside was becoming more and more vigorous. Cracks started appearing on the first floor of 88 True Yang building. He Pei and the other elders went pale as they looked at this scene in a daze. As for the other Gu masters at the lower floors of the sacred palace, many were already kneeling on the ground, kowtowing nonstop. Some shouted, some wept, and some begged. Don't collapse, don't collapse. Old ancestor, what mistake did we commit? Why are you punishing us like this? We beg old ancestor to show mercy. Please give another chance to us unfilial descendants. All these voices entered He Lulan's ears as he stared at the first floor of 88 True Yang building rigidly. The cracks were continuously spreading on the first floor. Even if He Lulan was a rank 5 Gu master with an extreme physique, an existence at the peak of mortals, right now he was feeling bewilderment, helplessness, hesitation, and weakness. No, this can't go on. I cannot allow this to happen. He Lulan shouted in fury, his expression malevolent and his gaze filled with hot fury. I have yet to avenge Mother. My vengeance. My strength path, immortal Gu. He screamed in his heart. Rumbled that a soft sound was heard, but the earth shook. 88 True Yang Building's first floor, which was completely condensed, collapsed completely and turned back into the free aurora light. The light was like a flood that had broken the dam as it gushed out and spread rapidly. In just a few breaths of time, it enshrouded the whole sacred palace and dyed the horizons. Puff. He Lulan's gaze lost its focus as suffocation filled his stomach. He involuntarily spurted out stagnated blood that had flowed in reverse towards his throat. No, I won't allow this. Form back right now. Come back. He opened up his palms and tried to grab the aurora. And as if it was responding to his effort, the aurora that were gushing out gradually reduced, and the surrounding lights also started falling back. He Lulan's gaze flashed. A spark of hope had just ignited in him, but was completely gone the next moment. The aurora light might have gathered back together, but it did not condense back to the image of the first floor. The light continued to reduce as if a giant incorporeal beast was swallowing it. No, don't, far away, Tai Bai Yun Sheng mumbled, his expression becoming spiritless. Do the heavens want my He tribe dead? First Elder He Pei clutched his hair that a problem occurred in 88 True Yang Building in He tribe's hands. This meant He tribe was completely finished. Other super forces and Huang Jin tribes would not let them go. Heavens, what happened? 88 True Yang Building is actually. Yi Lui Sang grabbed his chest in fear. Near his heart resided the fire path, immortal Gu, which was lent by Yi Lui tribe's supreme elder, Yi Lui Lai, before the imperial court contest. Right now, this fire path, immortal Gu, was trembling nonstop. Almost at the same time, Fang Yuan's expression also had a slight change. In his aperture, spring-autumn cicada revealed its true body, trembling continuously, and was emitting its immortal Gu aura, causing his rank 5 aperture to creak from the pressure. This is the resonance of the great Tao in heaven and earth. Fang Yuan was well aware of this. Man was the spirit of all living beings. Gu was the essence of heaven and earth, a vessel of the great Tao. If immortal Gu was said to hold only a tiny fragment of the law of heaven and earth, then an immortal Gu would hold a corner of the great Tao, an intact piece of the rules of heaven and earth. Because of this, there could only be one immortal Gu of its kind. Every time an immortal Gu was born, other immortal Gu in the surroundings would tremble and respond. The more closely related or conflicting the law inside Gu worms' bodies are, the stronger the resonance between them and the greater the extent they would tremble. From the extent of spring-autumn cicadas trembling, this immortal Gu that is about to be born is not of the time path. Fang Yuan estimated, but his gaze was tightly looking at the cave without the least bit of negligence. Inside the cave, the aurora from 88 True Yang Building was continuously being absorbed before fading away as it nurtured the intense light within. This intense light was becoming more and more flourishing. The black membrane at the entrance was starting to show signs of not being able to restrain it. That'll do. If I don't make a move now, the black membrane will burst and the aurora will shoot to the sky and expose me. It is still a small matter if He Lulan and the rest are the ones that discover me. But in case it awakens 88 True Yang Building's hibernating will, then it will just take one thought from the immortal venerables will to turn me into ashes. Fang Yuan had endured the impulse to make a move several times before, and now the timing was fully ripe. He made his move, throwing in large numbers of Gu worms that Gu worms from rank 1 to rank 5 from all paths sprinkled down like rain. This situation looked disorderly and complex, but it actually had a special profoundness to it. The Gu worms were not only divided into separate groups, they even had particularly specific distances from each other, to the extent that some Gu worms fell slightly slower while some fell faster. This was a high-grade technique of Gu refinement called the sprinkler. Gu masters with natural talent and aptitude could master enslavement path and flying skills. But even the Gu masters with higher natural talent required thousands of tries before they could display a decent use of the sprinkler technique. Fang Yuan's attainment in this technique was beyond the level of just a decent performance, and was enough to make other refinement path masters exclaim in surprise. After the Gu worms sprinkled down, the aurora slowly changed color into that of blue water or the sky, before becoming still to eye in the blue light. Countless white lights flew like birds and swam like fish. Specks of white light would occasionally gather into a heap and from time to time scatter like stars. Just glancing at this for a moment caused Fang Yuan to feel dizzied. He quickly moved his gaze towards the sacred palace. The clamors in the sacred palace had already decreased. After the aurora light enshrouding the sacred palace decreased by around half, the speed of its reduction slowed. Seeing that no one was paying attention here, and the scattered wolf groups were also not sending any battle signals, Fang Yuan inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. Everything is going smoothly. It should be the final step now. He was extremely cautious and did not even have the slightest intent of being conceited. Instead, he was even more vigilant. Whether it was the history of this world or on Earth, how many cases were there of people failing at the last hurdle? Moreover, this final step would create a huge commotion and was the step where a problem was most likely to appear. Fang Yuan slightly flicked his wrist, and in a smelly fart goo that he had been holding lightly flew into the cave. Immediately a peculiar fragrance spread out of the cave. The peculiar fragrance flew even without wind, soon spreading out. Stopped. It has stopped. After a while of shock and fear, the Gu masters in the sacred palace became wild with joy. Lord, the aurora has stopped reducing and has begun to slowly increase again. A He tribe elder shouted excitedly and was kicked by He Lu Lan. I can see that. He Lu Lan kicked the elder to the ground. His gaze was ruthless, but the deep voice could not conceal his joy. However, his heart was extremely nervous. The reduction of 88 True Yang buildings' aurora and even the collapse of the floor had never happened before. What had happened? He Lu Lan's mind was filled with doubts. He did not know why there was a problem. It caused him to worry greatly. What made He Lu Lan even more helpless and indignant was that 88 True Yang building was the work of an immortal venerable. Even if I knew where the problem was, I probably would not be able to solve it with just my ability. If he was to know that it was all caused by Fang Yuan single-handedly, then he would probably risk his life and tear off the seal placed on him by immortal Gu Dark Limit, to pit his life against Fang Yuan. Chapter 565. Everyone with their own intentions. 88 True Yang building's shocking change was a traumatic experience for everyone in the sacred palace. Countless people were worried, scared, and helpless. Fortunately, the situation stabilized not long after 88 True Yang building's first floor collapsed. The aurora no longer reduced and was instead beginning to increase again. Maybe because it was provoked, the speed of this aurora's increase was somewhat faster than before. Several days later, the thick as water aurora condensed back to the first floor of 88 True Yang building. After it had completely formed, He Lu Lan and the others immediately entered it anxiously. Their entry to 88 True Yang building proceeded smoothly. This made He Lu Lan greatly relieved, and he gradually calmed down. 88 True Yang building was extremely significant to him. He needed to become a Gu immortal to avenge his mother. As the possessor of one of the 10 extreme physiques, great strength true martial physique, his only hope of becoming an immortal was to obtain a strength path immortal Gu from 88 True Yang building. This was depicted in For Humans to Live. It was okay if they did not have strength or even wisdom, but they could not lose hope. He Lu Lan regained the hope of saving his life. His mood gradually turned better as he started to plan his next breakthrough of the 100 rounds. The first floor of 88 True Yang building had formed anew, so the checkpoints had reset, making He Lu Lan's previous efforts turn into smoke. He needed to overcome everything again. To He Pei and the other elders, this was a very good thing. This is joy after extreme sorrow. Going through the rounds again will allow us to get even more rewards. Maybe that was a small joke by old ancestor immortal venerable. Every floor in 88 True Yang building has 100 rounds, with the difficulty increasing sharply at the later rounds. Looking at history, there were very few Imperial Court winners who were able to cross through every round. We should not be optimistic in being able to overcome the final round. As long as we can put all our efforts in passing the earlier rounds, our tribe's strength will rise greatly. The elders were filled with joy, but this was bad news to He Lulan. There were only two ways for him to obtain a strength path immortal goo from 88 True Yang building. First was to get a high-grade evaluation and enter the treasure room. Then use his bloodline identity to exchange for the immortal goo inside. Second was to pass the final round of every floor, which could give him the chance to obtain an immortal GU.To He Lulan. The first method required him to bring out an equivalently valuable treasure to exchange, and thus was not practical. The only probability of success was in the second method. Passing through the last few rounds would be extremely difficult. The rounds were reset now. They would have to overcome these rounds again, which no doubt would waste his precious time. Time waits for no man. Once their time was up, they would be sent out of Imperial Court Blessed Land. If he could not get a Strength Path Immortal Goo before this happens, He Lulan would not only be unable to take revenge, but would also have to welcome his death. For this reason, He Lulan stubbornly maintained his stance in spite of others' wishes and started recruiting other tribes' Goo Masters, completely opening up 88 True Yang building. Everyone could casually enter or exit 88 True Yang building free of charge. Other than He tribe elders, everyone in the sacred palace was celebrating in joy. He Lulan has a grand demeanor, doing something that no other lords of Imperial Court have done before. I, Yi Lui sang, am in deep admiration. Yi Lui sang was the first to enter 88 True Yang building, his face covered in a joyful glow. He was the current tribe leader of Yi Lui tribe and had been a popular candidate to win the prior Imperial Court contest. The tribe's Goo Immortals supported him greatly, not even stinting on lending a Fire Path Immortal Goo to him. But he lost in the end, and to preserve the Fire Path Immortal Goo, he had no choice but to side with He Lulan. They finally won and succeeded in entering Imperial Court Blessed Land, but as one of the super forces, he felt that it was a disgrace to be a subordinate of He tribe. He was sure to be treated coldly, abandoned, and even punished when he returned to the tribe. If I can have good gains in 88 True Yang building, then I can make up for the earlier mistakes and return grandly to the tribe. Yi Lui Sang's emotions surged. Changshan, don't be proud of yourself. As long as you don't become an immortal, I will have a chance. 88 True Yang building is my cornerstone to rise up. Chang Biao had a cold look in his eyes. He was also among the first batch of experts to enter the tower. He was not moving alone and had a companion beside him. It was Soul Blade General Pan Ping, previously at Xingjiao Mountain Peak. Pan Ping's opportunity had been openly seized by Fang Yuan, which created a lot of indignance in his heart. Chang Biao learned of this situation and intentionally approached Pan Ping. The two hit it off, becoming partners. Go. Become the vanguards to open my path. Use your lives to broaden my way. He Lulan sneered inwardly, using his owner token while calmly looking at the grand flow of people entering the tower. After the flow of people had gradually become sparse, Tai Bai Yunxing, with his simple and aged appearance, tall and sturdy physique, clothed in a white robe, he appeared at the top floor of the sacred palace. Old Sir Tai Bai. He Lulan greeted him. Lord Tribe Leader has astonishing mettle. This old man is overwhelmed. Tai Bai Yunxing exclaimed in admiration. He had an elegant demeanor and leisurely attitude. Since everyone could casually enter and exit now, they were not restricted by the quota. He also did not anxiously enter the tower immediately, since the rounds which might give lifespan Goo as the reward would definitely be the later rounds. The two exchanged a few words before Tai Bai Yunxing entered the tower. There is strength in numbers. He Lulan was feeling overwhelmed in his mind. From the information sent by the owner token, in just a short period of time, because of the enormous quantity of Goo Masters, they had successively gotten through the first 30 rounds. However, at the 40th round and above, just numbers would not work. They required specific Goo Master experts to cross those rounds. Pan Ping, Chang Biao, Yi Lui Sang, and Tai Bai Yunxing made their moves one after another, and were able to push to the 53rd round. But here, their momentum came to a stop. They encountered a problem. They needed an enslavement path master to pass this round. Looks like we must have Wolf King to pass this round. Tai Bai Yunxing muttered while stroking his snow-white beard. In this Imperial Court contest, Fang Yuan's performance left behind an extremely deep impression on everyone. The glorious title of the #1 enslavement path Goo Master of this generation in Northern Plains was already given to him. Thus, as they encountered this problem, everyone's first thought was Fang Yuan. Strange, why don't I see Changshan? Yi Lui Sang looked around him, but could not find Changshan. Wolf King has been taking his wolves out for hunting these few days. Soon, someone replied. Chang Shanin is indeed an extraordinary person. We can casually enter and exit 88 True Young building, but his heart is actually not moved. Sighs and admiration could be heard among the group. Pan Ping snorted, speaking in a gloomy tone. Everyone, please don't forget that our Lord Wolf King has already entered the tower before. According to a reliable source, he passed with high-grade evaluation. After he exited the tower, he immediately went to closed-door cultivation and even refused many invitations from tribe leader He Lulan. The crowd here knew of the conflict between him and Fang Yuan, and as no one wished to offend this uprising Soul Blade general, the praises and admiration towards Fang Yuan immediately stopped. Everyone sank into a momentary silence. Many Gu Master experts also had a slight change in expressions as they showed a somewhat unexpected look on their face. Pan Ping had a sinister motive in mentioning Fang Yuan had obtained a huge benefit before, leaving it to everyone's ample imagination as to what reward it was, and with this, succeeded in inciting jealousy in their hearts. If it was before when these people did not have any experience of the enormous benefits provided by 88 True Young building, it would have been slightly better. But now that they had experienced it as they passed the rounds, the fire of envy was lit up in the depths of their hearts. At this moment, a young Gu Master's voice broke the silence. Since 88 True Young building is open for everyone, everyone can obtain benefits. Lord Father being able to obtain the benefits was due to his own ability. The crowd's gazes quickly moved towards the source and discovered it was none other than Chang Shanyan's own son, Chang Jiyu. Immediately, Pan Ping's expression turned sharp as he viciously gazed at Chang Jiyu. Although Chang Jiyu was somewhat weaker than Pan Ping, his heart was filled with reverence towards his father, so he did not back down and instead returned Pan Ping's gaze with his own furious gaze. Killing intent surged in Pan Ping's mind, but he did not dare to make a move. He was unexpected put on the spot by Chang Jiyu, a junior. The person with the most complicated feelings right now was Chang Biao. He was Chang Jiyu's own bloodfather, but right now, he had to look on at his own son defending his greatest enemy. Grievance and hatred were surging up nonstop in his heart. Cough, cough. Tai Yunxing stood up to alleviate the tension. Everyone, let's concentrate on this round. At this point, we can only request Lord Wolf King's assistance. Among us, old Sir Tai has the highest reputation. As long as you personally send a letter, Wolf King will definitely accept the request. The Gu Masters spoke one after another, but Chang Biao and Pan Ping glanced at each other, their hearts filled with worry. If Wolf King comes, he was sure to pass this round. But with this, not speaking of the rewards he would get from passing the round, his prestige would increase even more. This was a situation these two were not willing to see. Pan Ping wanted to speak up but hesitated. He had the mind to prevent this, but it was not easy getting a chance to interrupt Tai Yunxing and make him back down. If Chang Jiyu again interrupted here, his face might be lost completely. Chang Biao was secretly observing Pan Ping's expression and saw Pan Ping opening his mouth several times but did not manage to speak in the end. He inwardly cursed Pan Ping for being a coward, then looked around and signaled a planet agent among the crowd. This planet agent immediately comprehended the signal and shouted out, "In my opinion, Lord Wolf King is occupied with important matters. It probably won't be easy to invite him. Why don't we request Lord Tang Miaoming instead? Her enslavement path attainment is already very close to Master Realm." Tai Yunxing's thoughts could not help being shaken. He did not have much interaction with Fang Yuan, but he knew deeply of the latter's arrogance. Instead of taking the risk of facing embarrassment from being refused, it might truly be better to let Tang Miaoming try first. Flap, flap, flap. Groups after groups of blissful snowbats flew from all around like rivers converging into the sea. As they flew towards Dichio Cave, the peculiar fragrance had spread for 100 li. It was this rich fragrance that had attracted the blissful snowbat groups. At this stage, the Gu refinement was already approaching the end. This is using the lives of beasts as sacrifices. It is a wonderful method that is similar to the workings of 88 True Young building. It is just that in case of 88 True Young building, the small towers sacrifice the wild Gu to combine their strength. As he personally put it into practice, Fang Yuan gained an even more profound understanding of this Gu refinement. The peculiar fragrance gradually dissipated, and without its temptation, the small number of remaining blissful snowbats flew away in disorder. It is about to finish. Fang Yuan's breathing turned rough and his gaze staring at the cave fixatedly, unable to conceal his excited expression.